George Bew took the quest to a guy, got a full of, he was a conductor and a composer, and George Bew took the score of the quest to him to see if he'd get a performance from him. And he opened it, looked at it, he threw it down on the floor, he says, "I don't play that shit." It meant that I was writing in this traditional tonality. And at the time, that was I tell you, I spent a year trying to find a libretto for the quest, for an opera. And I went through at FSU the junior high school literature, and it was simply crap. I mean, I'm sorry, but it was so watered down. And I said, junior high school students are reading this. It was nothing. And I almost gave up until George Bew, who was my roommate, and we walked into this drugstore. George said, "You know, there's a Children's Crusade legend." I said, "Children's Crusade legend?" Never knew about it. And I started reading about it. I got a book that talked about, there were two of them and so on. And that really set me on. And if George hadn't mentioned that, I've never written that opera. First was written for two pianos and chorus and voices. And they were wanting to do it. For some reason, I hooked up with this cellist who was teaching on the faculty. And he says, "I want to do this opera, The Quest." He says, "But you have to orchestrate it, not for two pianos." That's how it got performed. And that's why we have that tape, basically, that FSU did. That tape is on YouTube today. These were made after the performance for a TV studio in Florida. And they did an excerpt of The Quest. And it went around because I remember my father sitting at home in DeBarry and watching it. So it got good exposure, but it was only maybe 20 minutes, not even that. And this is Richard Collins, who played the father, and Dunscombe, who is imitating the priest here, but he actually was the conductor. As you can see, you mainly just see the steps of the cathedral. And that is really good because they become the risers at the finale of the first act, where they're all singing, ready to go to the crusade. And then the father, he wants the priest to bless the crusade, and the priest picks it up. And then he realizes what he's doing. No, he doesn't want this. He throws down the cross on the floor. The father picks up the cross and blesses the crusade. So it's really, it's quite dramatic. And the singers are all singing, hundreds of children singing. Said that Dunscombe wanted to do it, and he premiered it. I think it was on the program. It doesn't give the year, it gives the date, but doesn't give the year. But I think it's 1966 because I came here in '65, and by the time I had it orchestrated, I thought from the audience response it was extremely successful. I mean, people. But I remember one lady make a comment which stuck with me ever since. She said, "I never want to hear that again." And I said, why? She said, it's too real. It's too much, I can see my child being caught up with that, and it's too sorrowful. And I just don't want to go through that. It tore me up too much. So, that was something that's sort of interesting.
He completes a piece, he calls me and says, we need to play this now. And so when I lived here, I would come over to the music building all whenever he was finished, and I would play the music with him. It's been interesting kind of and kind of sad, I guess, a little bit, to see the manuscript. Like, I can barely read it now. When I first got here, I could read it really well, and so that's deteriorated a little. So I asked Carl questions about the music, like, what do you want here, what do you want here? And it's really interesting because some composers are like, this is definitely how it is. And Carl's answer is usually, what do you think? And the other thing that happens is sometimes I'll ask him a question about a piece he wrote like in the 70s, and he'll say, I have no idea. I don't remember writing this piece. I see that I did. Well, play it for me and I'll tell you what I think right now. And that's an interesting thing. I mean, not all composers are like that.
I would sell my son, not your son, but the others.
He was just perfect with that part. I mean, a father who, I don't want to portray him as totally evil. I wanted to portray him, he only became evil because he was too good. In other words, he wanted to get out of, he was evidently a peasant. The opera doesn't say what he did, but his boy tended flocks of sheep to make some money, and maybe he had some dealing as a merchant, but he didn't want to live like that. He wanted to let his boy become a gentleman, to have the privilege of people who are educated. And he went too far, is the only problem. But then I think he saw reality, and he simply took reality and said, I might as well take advantage of the reality. And of course, the reality is simply that these kids are going to go on a crusade. They're not going to get anywhere. And he realized I might as well protect them rather than have them starve, sell them as slaves to merchants, and get some money as a result of it. And then help my boy.
If they brought a fair price, I might become rich. Yes, I see it, a way to help and yet profit. I see it now, a way to help the cause.
I remember writing it, and this voice comes to Nicholas, and I said, how am I going to do that? To have someone speak it like through a loudspeaker, that's to God's voice. Nicholas, it was too. So I just saw a beam, just a light, and Nicholas responding like he's hearing something, and that solved that problem. And then at the end, I thought, well, how is he going to release Nicholas after he sold all these crusaders that were left to the merchants? How is he going to let him go? And then I realized, money, the gold. The merchants come with the gold. The father's so possessed by the gold that he's counting the gold. He doesn't realize Nicholas is going with his followers on the ship. By the time he's finished counting the gold, the ship is already leaving, and you hear the voices singing the Crusaders' hymn. So that's how that opera ended and why it is. And the father then realizes what's use of this gold, his most precious thing was his son. That's what this is all about. And he lost him. So he lost everything.
What have I done? I have lost my only son. For this silver and gold, I have let him go. To be sold as a slave for silver and gold. Look, Nicholas. Gold. 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 Gold.
Well, I only can speak of the way I see it. There's so much going on that needs to be going on, but I think it's going to, I may be totally wrong, but I think it's going to be forgotten as far as being played in the future. For the simple reason that it's a novelty. People say, wow, but then, give it another 50 years, maybe 100 years, it isn't a novelty anymore. And that's going to be forgotten, unless it's played as a novelty. Take Schoenberg, for instance. Schoenberg came up with the tonal and the rhythm and all that. But if I listen to NPR, the music, Performance Today, and Peter Van Graff at night here, music all the time, I hear very little of Elliott Carter, Schoenberg, all these people, that Alvin Berg, all these people that followed in his suits, that kind of music.
He has a really kind of specific philosophy about his music and kind of where it exists on the time spectrum. And I don't think it's just a philosophy. I think it's based in actual fact. But he talks about, we sometimes talk about contemporary music and how it has a lot of like extended techniques and extra things and that kind of stuff. And he talks to me about like that isn't contemporary music anymore. That's old music. That's from 40, 50 years ago. Contemporary music is this. And so he's always trying to move his music into like a new realm and try to write things that audiences are craving. And so sometimes he feels like that is an older style and he's looking toward a new thing.
Yeah. I talk too much.
Not at all. No, it's perfect, Carl. We really appreciate it.
Anyway.
I almost feel bad not being able to respond,
Yeah, no, we want to respond, but it's just, we're only, if I talk or Ty talks, it's only going to make Ty's job harder down the line.